afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm just checking on 1 minute early. Just make sure that I have everything and that you can all see me and hear me and all that kind of good stuff. So before we formally start, I just want to, I have my mask in the background, and that I also have my lucky dog buddy right here. He's the most obedient res dog there is because he is a statue. So this is 12:59. So I hope people are going to join me today, and I'm looking forward to spending this next hour with all of you. And I just have to. It's 1 o'clock. Okay, so welcome to the Native Wellness Power Hour. And today the subject is today, walking through today in a good way. And I really have been mindful of what I wanted to share with you today and this hour that we're going to spend together. And I even sometimes, I made myself a script, and or it's more like a map, I would say, to get through this power hour. But okay, my name is Lori NewBreast, and I'm coming to you from the traditional territory of my people, of the Blackfoot Confederacy, and in the geography of Montana, on the Blackfeet Reservation on the Rocky Mountain front. And you may see me sip some little concoction I have here today. I live on the eastern Rocky Mountain front, and west into the mountains. On the west side of the Continental Divide on Goat Mountain, you can't make this stuff up, there is a new forest fire that blazed up yesterday. And that wind stream comes directly over the place I live. So although I'm careful, I have that little, wildfire smoke throat. And it made me naturally think of all the folks right now that are touched by, the smoke in our part of the world. But worldwide, humans during this time are also touched by all those wildland fires everywhere. We could go into a whole show about that, or a whole dialogue, but that's what's happening today with me. But I also wanted to share some really thoughts about as we move through now this collective experience of the pandemic, or whatever you want to call it. People are now starting into the interpretive stage. We're starting in, as we're telling this story of the human family at this time, people are looking through what's around them and beginning to craft their stories of what they're going to relay to their friends that they've been maybe only connected on social media with, or who they haven't heard from. And so I wanted to be mindful that this is a collective experience. And this morning I was watching, on the internet, I was watching the World Health Organization, team that really gives out public information. And there was this blip. It was like, they're on their regular normal things that they've carried over from the pre-pandemic days of how to speak, how to talk. And there was a reporter who was allowed to ask a question, and he could not, after today, he doesn't have a job. That's just, what's happening with him today. And the first thing he said is, I want to express my gratitude to everybody who's trying to help. And I want you to know you're appreciated, because I see some of the, like, those folks get a lot of negative comments. They don't need like a trauma childhood committee in their head. It's like live. It's like all their families worldwide giving them some comments. And so I was really struck by that in this time of, where he was speaking at, an international level, where he was allowed to ask a question about the pandemic or COVID-19, he took that human pause to acknowledge that the human connection of everybody on that call, that some people were staying up, they were in the middle of the night, depending on where they live on the earth. And he took that pause to make that human connection. And I think what we're finding right now is, in this medium that we're on together, right, that it is possible to connect. And so I want to talk about a little bit of that kind of. So today, that's what I want to talk about, is connection. But I've really been thinking about, because I live in the U.S., I am a person who experiences the environment in the U.S. There's a term that people use, and I've always, an English term, to describe what goes on, like your interior world. And they use the term or the phrase mental health. And I was like, that's a good term. Don't write me any letters or anything like that. But I would like us to consider today, in this hour that I'm sharing with you, that really I want to share with you some things about what I consider under the, if you want to say, under the shawl that I wear, of mental wellness, that we put aside just for this hour, that term mental health. So you don't have to translate English into English. And I really want to talk about mental wellness, because I have, normally at this time of year, especially last week, I would have spent a very beautiful time with the people in the Meskwaki community in Iowa, Tama, Iowa. And those folks are still, waiting, you like, they pop up randomly, they'll drive to Walmart, I'm online, but they are living without some of the creature comforts that we've been accustomed to. And there are people all over that's happening to. And they came up strongly in my memory today, because I keep my connection with them online through social media. And they were always a super, super fun, vibrant group. And so I want to carry those people into today, that those connections we had prior to the pandemic, they're still continuing. It's just how much they come in a day-to-day basis to center in front of your vision of how you're living today. And so today I would like to remember them and all the people that lived in that swath where that great wind went through. And we're still being impacted. The story of how we are interacting with the earth and in the environment, we're a live story on that as a human family during this time. And so, I when I was collecting all the things I wanted to talk to and share with you today about the stories is I gave my little clues, so you see them all over my little thing. And I was like, I checked in on social media, you know, and I was like, it was International Dog Day, and um, a couple days ago, and I missed it. But luckily, I have 3 res dogs, so every day is Res Dog Day. But I wanted to. Um, that's why I have Buddy joining me here. Um, that there was a time in my life when, because of my living circumstances, because of just how I made my living, it wasn't fair to an animal to have a dog. And I didn't think I would ever have a dog again. So I bought Buddy because, and I would donate, you know, I donate to efforts to help animals and stuff. But Buddy was a constant reminder of what I really loved about dogs. So today I was reminded about that, about uh, what throughout my life, throughout my wellness journey, my mental wellness at many points in my life as a child, whatever I was going through, it was eased, and I felt love from an animal. So I never felt truly alone, even though if my family was having a hard time. I had a connection that was outside of me. And so Buddy's a reminder of that. And um, one of my close friends, she's like many families, including my own family, we have suffered the loss of a loved one during this time. And it's at your own pace that you begin to craft that story of remaining the living generation as they join the spirit world. And there's all kinds of emotions and information that you deal with during that time, during when you're getting your you're getting your balance back. It's like um, you know, like when you're crossing a swift low stream and there's a lot of rocks, you kind of got to be mindful, or you know, whoopsie, you know, you fall on your oopsie, your bottom, your buttocks. And that's what it's like when we have lost during this time. You know, we're crossing that stream, trying to get through and be mindful during the pandemic of all the things we must consider and must be connected to and do everything right, keep balance. But you come up on those little whoopsies. And so for those of you that have ever, you know, fallen in a stream, um, there's a funny story I want to tell you about a relative who will remain nameless. They were, we were at this river on the reservation, and we were going out there, and I was going out there, you know, with my dogs and stuff. So they wanted to come, but they had their very expensive electronic biometric device on their arm when they first came out. And so they were really being careful. Then all of a sudden, whoopsie, they fell on their bum, and they started going down the stream. So they looked very graceful when it happened, but they were going down the stream, and um, they were calling out the name of that product, and they had their hand up in the air. And in my mind, when I seen that, you know, they're calling out the name of the product and they're keeping it dry because at that time it would not survive the water. And so in my mind, I thought, oh, they're okay, because they have the capacity to say they're a very expensive biometric product. So that can tell them what they're doing in their life. So sometimes when I'm moving about in my day-to-day life, I come from a part of the reservation where people in cars wave at each other. We may not know who they are, especially right when you're all masked up and you got your sunglasses out, maybe you got your hat on, maybe your hair's tucked up or it's extra shaggy. I don't know. You know, we wave at each other. And really, I have that little action of signaling I'm okay, right? I'm okay. Um, or I don't know, the Hunger Games salute, I don't know. Um, Really, that is also a type of connection that I found is resilient into this time, is that mere community wave. So today, after we share our time together, and maybe you're going to move around somewhere, or you're going to do FaceTime with people, and people wave, right? There was even an article about why do people wave at the end of Zoom calls? Because this is also a universal thing, right? Hi, I'm okay, right? And then there's American Sign Language, if you know that. But the showing an open palm to anyone carries, whether it's an animal, another living being, carries a signal. And so when I wave at people on the highway, um, I don't even know if they're like a member of the tribe, right? Uh, and that really doesn't matter. Like I wave at them, or I will. Yesterday, driving in the mountains, there weren't many cars, which is different this time. There would be really thousands of cars and through the mountains. And so, I'd see, who did I see out there? Was truck drivers, hauling the goods that we need, right? So I'd give them a wave. So that action of signaling to people that you're okay, or reforming connections. Maybe you don't have time to call, all. Like if I moved to my second or third cousins, I'm talking about like over 300 people, because I got huge cousin bills, and but merely signaling to people in some way that you're okay today, or you're actually maybe even having a great day, maybe you're doing good things, is really important. And then I want to be mindful that most of the United States and Indian communities have sent their children in some way back to school, whether it's virtually or in a brick and mortar. And I was also thinking about the parents that, and they're all their connections. But virtually, if you're teaching people at home and you're the parent or the adult responsible for that, I think that, you know, I just want to make sure you include yourself in the recess, right? That's part. That was my favorite part of school. I'll just be transparent. It was the recess, and but during this time today, that you include yourself in those fun breaks, whatever it is, whatever brings you a smile. And then when I was getting ready for today, often like my hair has its own journey, but I just want to know. I just want all you powwow princesses, kings, and queens out there to know that in your honor, I did use some hairspray on my hair because it was extra frizz, and really to be mindful that uh, that was one of the things I in the past couple of years that I just found fascinating, how the hairstyles uh, were so intricate at the powwows. And there was so much skill and really design and beauty and a lot of hairspray, you know. And there's a lot of projects out there that look at old and share old photographs of the ancestors. And if you if they are truly photographs of our ancestors, they groomed, they took care of their hair. And there were many hairstyles that spoke about your position, about your wisdom, about your time of life, and maybe the state you're in on a daily basis. And So I want today to be mindful of that, right? And so, what is your hair looking like today? And um, that is one of an overall like teachings, not in only our world, but like in healing and wellness, is that, you know, what you show when you're genuine, sometimes it looks a little frizzy and a little shaggy on the wellness journey. But there's always the self-care that comes in, that, you know, sometimes people as they move through their journey, um, different things happen to their hair, to their physical appearance. And through self-care, no matter what it is, you can take care of yourself. And so today that is critical. If you are not you know, I don't know if you want to call it preventive isolating or mandated, whatever the reason is, we're all spending a lot of time mindfully thinking about which social occasion is safe, which is relevant to our health during this time, and a way to take care of yourself that is accessible. You don't need, you know, you don't need a lot of equipment, is to care for your physical body. Wash up, have a routine where you take care of yourself, change your clothes, you know, be mindful of what you're going to wear. So today, you know, I have my other like coaching little things, you know, right? The Native Wellness Power Hour t-shirt. Mine says today, healing people, heal people. And sometimes I say that really fast, you know, like when I'm getting ready. Um, but I also have, I also have my pin made by by the other half of my people on the other side of the Canadian border, uh, and it of a woman. It's a beaded pin that they gave me um, during their gathering on missing and murdered Indigenous people. But I wear this pin because it's a living expression of people living today that are still committed to this, even though we're in COVID-19, even though we are asked now to do double duty, new duty, no duty. Everything is changing, right? But I wear this as a reminder that those calls for justice, those calls for safety, which is just a basic human right and is a cornerstone of wellness. So today, to find that cornerstone, that inner anchor of safety with yourself. And yesterday when I was coming home, it was a very there was so much, you know, you have to I have like my little hazmat toolkit that I take with me when I have to do certain things. And but by the time I was coming home, I was pretty, you know, like, woo, I'm going to my safe space. So I have my safe spaces physically, and I also have my safe spaces internally. And that's part of my mental wellness. I have those, you know, self sayings. I have those beautiful memories. I have those memories of in the past, the wisdom of the past of how I felt connection. And um, I also wanted to encourage each of you. A lot of people, there was always a great part of when we could all go to conferences and, you know, do workshops together. And there was always teachings about carrying a stone and having that stone carry your story, Maybe it's a story you wanted to celebrate. Maybe it's a story that you need to let go. Maybe it's a story of dealing with the here and now and wondering what will come tomorrow. But people would tell their whatever story they needed to share with that stone, and then they would go make an offering of it to the universe, or they would put it back. And on another power hour, I shared how when I went to Italy, the river Big Badger Creek that I live next to, um, in the 1990s, when I was going to go to Italy with one of my other friends to live for a while, I took stones from this river, and they carried me through that whole journey. And when I came back, I returned them to this river. And in my mind, those stones were going to carry that story to all the other things that that river touches. They were going to carry that story out of my experience, but also of how they brought me home. So sometimes things like a pen, a pencil, a special cup, during this time, uh, it's important to begin to identify those things that you're going to put your story, that are a reminder that your story is important. And um, I'm also a real, I watch a lot of videos of people. One of the things that I do like, enjoy about social media during this time is people are sharing their story through whatever medium they can. They'll get online, they'll start saying things, they'll post pictures, and those are really, to me, like the nuggets of the truth of what's happening. And it's almost, we're developing the skill to start to really understand that you can start using your intelligence, sifting out, just like as if you sift flour, sifting out what is not authentic on this medium. And for me, and for my mental wellness, my interior environment, that my spirit guides me. Uh, my sister-in-law told me yesterday when we were on the phone, remember, trust your gut. And I don't know if they've written an article about trusting your gut, but that is always in your interior wellness. That is always a really guiding point of when something just don't feel right. And I think, well, I would say I know this, that the healing journey that Indigenous people have been on, because even prior to contact or disruption of our world, we had methods to regain balance. We had methods to have what people call now social justice, but it was a bit about the way we wanted to live and move forward, or live on a daily basis. We had mechanisms, spiritual ones, ceremonial ones. We had roles and response. You were born into a role and responsibility when you came onto the earth. And so we carry all of those. And then through this time, when we began to address, the disruption of when our indigenous worlds were turned topsy-turvy, there's been a lot of wisdom that has been gathered. And if you are participating really, um, I think that's one of the teachings for me about about this time, is that I didn't plan it. I cannot control the virus, and I also can care how the virus is impacting all our lives. I can have compassion for people I don't even know, for families that maybe live somewhere else, for communities that live somewhere else. That is one of the pieces of wisdom that today, you know, when I was being mindful of what I was going to share with you during this time, you can be caring and compassionate. And then another saying that comes always when I think about how you give, when you know, if I give advice or, you know, I tell my story, is that I go back to some of my teachers that were so helpful at the beginning. And many of them now are no longer here, are in the living generation. They've moved on their spiritual journey. And there was always this saying, let me begin with me. And so really that caring and compassion that it's is to start with yourself. So today that's what I'm reminded of, because you know, I was thinking about sometimes there is so much to be done, and at the end of the day when you're preparing to sleep, you may think, oh, I didn't, you might, what I didn't do list might be a little long. But if you think about it and turning that list into a circle, it did have a beginning and it had an end, and you did what you could to have that act of compassion with yourself, that you did live your best day that you were capable of. And some days as you move on in this journey, because now we're going into the fall time, you know, we're going into a different time with the weather, with our environment, the animals, people are doing different activities. Um, we're also asked to still participate in the world we live in. And for those of you not in the US, we're Native people here are being asked to be just as active as we were a decade ago, or 8 years ago, or 4 years ago, in terms of engaging in the outer world process. So today I thought, well, what can I do? What can I do when all those requests are still coming in? And oh, and I guess I should say this. Where I live, we are under still that stay-at-home order, essential travel only, and by and large, our tribal government follows the World Health Organization recommendations, and we are cultivating on a daily basis for our relatives to participate in that. But we must have compassion. I think the world. I think that I can't remember their hashtag. That's why they gotta change it. But this is sort of my hashtag, right? Support, don't stigmatize the relatives that are not comfortable for whatever reason, or, you know, it hasn't become a habit for them to uh, take those precautions, take those prevention steps. And really, that's what you can pay forward beyond whatever space you're in right now, is that compassionate acknowledgement that we all make it through. All our people make it through, because all our people matter. And so, as to stay mindful and to stay in touch on a daily basis, sometimes is there's it's a lot during this time. And there's a saying, and I was also like, you know, somebody doesn't always give you more than you can handle. Well, I kind of want to say you always have the right to put up your boundary when you need a pause. I want to share a story of like pre-pandemic, when the first people, the first Native people, and maybe in your family, you could immediately say who was the first person to get a college degree. And if you don't know, there was a first. Because in our experience, particularly in the US, is I do know people that in my family, they were the first. They were the first person. That circumstances were they. And then there were so few like American Indians and Alaskan Natives that were allowed to pursue academic, degrees beyond like the basic secondary school. Um, that they were, and this is a story of one of those first people, and um, so there were all these Indians at this big, expensive university, and they wanted to have their say. They wanted to be a part of the university life. They wanted, to have their Native American, student organization. They wanted to be a part of it. And so they'd go to these big meetings, and when people that they were kind of like, maybe when the Indians showing up, they weren't sure if they were there to clean the room, or if they were real students or if they were lost. But so they were into an environment that was just shocked that they showed up. And so they won this one meeting about resources. They were in there, and they were talking and raising their hand, being mindful of the protocol. And then they understood that there came a point where all the others in the room were joining to silence that native voice. And so one of the brilliant thinkers, he was a brilliant thinker before he went to university. He said, "Excuse me, all the Indians are going to go caucus in the hall." And all the Indians stood up, and they went in the hall, and they started visiting. And he knew in that moment that he did not have to ask anyone's permission to take a pause, to take a breath, to regroup the people and regroup himself, and understand that they had a right to participate fully. They had a right. They didn't need anyone's permission to pursue their educational dreams and their ambitions. And so he would, when I asked him for advice about a similar situation of resources, intertribal functions, and gatherings, that's one of the story he told me. He didn't tell me what to do, because when he told me that story, I felt uplifted. I felt like, oh, okay, I'm going to use that. And I want to pass that on to you today. That mindful pause that he told me is our right, is our way, because our people did not rush into decision making, because we are circle thinkers, where you hear everybody in the circle and you collectively. So they needed to call that pause and regroup so that they could move collectively forward. So at this time, when we are really asked to be on our toes all the time and doing the correct thing, it's okay to call a caucus, take a break, pause, regroup. And sometimes I tell myself, okay, I got to reset the day. Sometimes it'll be only like 9:30 in the morning, and I reset the day. So you always have that right to take a pause, except for don't be driving and decide you're going to pause without pulling over. And so that teaching I carry forward into today. Now I have to time check me, and it's down there, so I got to look down. So that story of how the interior, like wellness that he shared with me, he had success at that meeting. And I want to tell you, I had success at that when I've used that technique, and I've passed it on to younger colleagues, that there will be times when, as we're negotiating through this collectively as a people, that the pause is the best answer for the moment, and where you regroup and you revisit the things in the past that comfort you, the things in the past that hurt you, but that you are going to change. You're working on changing, and it's okay to take a pause. And so when you're negotiating this time and you're thinking to yourself, you know, what is my mental wellness? What is that wellness that I am looking for? And maybe, you know, it's coming from prior to the pandemic. I'm just going to share that this is like the truth. Prior to the pandemic, the last, I would say, 4 years, when I started to meet other people through my travels and stuff that were beginning to use the virtual medium or the online medium to change how they worked and how they interacted and how they mobilized. I was fascinated by that. And I wanted to go on that journey. I wanted to start that journey. And so I cannot deny that a part of what I experience right now is I get a chance to see if those are the moccasins I'm going to wear for a long time, that I walk on the virtual world, or if I am going to be choosing another way as, you know, as things change. And then I was thinking too about like some of the things that I'm grateful I don't have to experience, and I can be with all of you today through this medium, because I would say in the last 2 years, maybe 18 months, really like kind of hardcore. Every time I went to the airport, I was felt up by the TSA, and I don't miss that one bit, right? Because part of wellness, or my mental wellness journey, is to have those physical boundaries respected. And that's where some of my healing has come in, that no, you don't get to touch me without my consent. But I made a bargain by going on an airplane with the airlines, that I consented to the regulations and the government regulations. So part of the outcome of that is that on pretty much, I can't even name one flight or one trip where that did not happen. So I'm grateful I don't have to go through that. And people, they'd always touch my hair. They'd never scratch my head if it was itchy, but, you know, they would always touch my hair. And I'm just saying, you know, so I'm grateful for that. So I'm now, you know, I guess sometimes I catch my second breath, because this has been going on 6 months. And I catch my breath and I start giving expression to those things, of whether it's good, bad. I don't pass a judgment, but what I'm thinking and feeling, and what my spirit is, my spiritual intelligence. You're going to hear my dogs. They're going to run out. What I feel about my spiritual intelligence, and express those. So I included my mask. I see things backwards. My mask here that I made, and it's kind of like it's kind of like a historical archive piece. So underneath my mask, the Good Air mask, it actually has a name. I made it during the pandemic as part of just a general call out. No money involved, no fame, no fortune, no, no statue made onto thee about participating in this group, just by a call out from artists online to make a mask and that represented what this time was. So I made the Good Air mask, and it's made out of white buckskin and has horsehair and symbols that are meaningful to me. And then underneath that mask is a mask I made in 1993. And so my mask is wearing my other mask. I kind of think that that's part of my mental wellness, interior environment humor. And but that mask from 1993 was a turning point in my wellness journey. Kaleo Chin, that is Native Hawaiian and Chinese, and he teaches in California. He organized the first Indigenous Peoples Faces exhibit at in Oakland, California, for, I think they call it the Arts of the Lake, but it's surrounded by Merritt Lake art exhibit that they have every year. And so Ruth Subi, who is Cree from Alberta, and is, hi Ruth up there in the spirit world, she invited me and my mother and another Native man named Buck to participate in this mask making. And the sole thing, if you want to say the sole theme, was for us to show our faces. Because in 1993, if you were born after that, I want to tell you, you could go a lot of places and all over and never see an Indigenous face represented anywhere. And so I carry that experience in creating that with this room full of Indigenous people, that the only reason we participated was so that the face of the ancestors that we wear, that we own, we are responsible for in the living generation, that it is shown, that we show our beauty, we show our family face. And it was a really incredible, unique experience. So today, when you're on social media, and there's all, people have heard that expression, save face, put your best face forward in the English language. Well, in social media, the one thing that I am grateful for is when I turn on social media, like if I turn on this particular platform, Facebook, I see Native faces everywhere. They're singing, they're doing their thing in the today. They're showing expressions. Here on our reservation at our home, people in a group have been showing the meals that they're cooking from all the gifts that our tribe has organized, so to make sure that we have good, healthy food available for our families. And so they're sharing their culinary skills, and that has been like just to me just like an uplifting thing. So there's always the chance to care, even on this medium. Sending out a good morning to people, showing them what you've made, your delicious food, putting your best face forward, breaking out that sacred can of powwow hairspray and doing up your hair, and sharing it with people. There are all those opportunities to express in a good way your face. And see, my dog right on cue. We didn't practice that or rehearse it, but she's keeping my space safe, and she talks a lot. So today I'm reminded of that. I'm reminded of to really be mindful of what I put on this medium. And as I was going through, I want to highlight my little script sheet here. Let's see if I can get it. One of the things I wrote down to sort of like my mantra that I was saying before I started this was that we're being asked a couple of things right now in Indian country. And I seen the campaigns. I don't have a t-shirt from there, but I seen campaigns for us to be present and to be acknowledged. And that's how I interpret all the things that are going on during this time about the census. That we're asked to be present. We're asked to show our face in responding to that, non-indigenous way of delving out resources. And so I'm going to tell you the story of how I participated in it, because this is about the real world I live in. So one day I came home the gravel road, and on the fence that I come through, the gate I need to open to drive up to my house, I came up on there, and there was a bag tied on my gate. Right? So, you kind of have to, approach it. You're not, kind of scout it out. You're not really sure what that bag might contain, right? Kind of scout it out. So I took it off, and I just threw it in my truck, to be honest. And then I locked the gate, and then drove my truck to my house, and then, ran up the stairs, opened the door, and then I was bringing things in. So I brought in that bag, and it was about answering the census. And they had tagged it on that fence because they had no idea who lived here, or even if anyone did. So I looked at it, and I said, I'm going to follow the instructions, and I'm going to answer it. And really, once I did that, it took me probably like 2-3 minutes. And it was done. So anytime I'm approached by people, did you fill out the census? Did you fill out the census? I say, yes, I did. I answered online. But really, how I got it, the number and everything you need, it was tied on my fence. And they tied it good, so they really knew about this area, because it could have blown away easily. But so there is that, to be present in a lot of instances. And then, I started to I even got a text message, and I was like, wait, this ain't my cousin. I got a text message reminding me to vote. And we all know that's another way to be counted and to be present. So those are real world examples of what I'm dealing with today, and from the collective experience, people are being asked. So for my mental wellness, I am going to be present as to the safe ability I can during this time, in those calls for assistance, so that collectively our people matter every day. But sometimes we are asked to represent our people that are not asked. And I think about how many babies have been born, like there's just Daily on my news feed, somebody's having a new grandchild, they're having their first baby, they're having their fifth baby, they're adding to their family of 13 kids again. Or I have a colleague that now that her and her husband, they had 10 children, and then now they're having their first grandchildren. And really, those children, that those babies that are being born during this time, they're counting on us to be present. So that's part of, really, for my mental wellness. I assess, I ask myself, I assess my ability to respond to all of those calls on a daily basis. And so all of that, I have to sift through what I am able to do given the conditions, the restrictions that I'm living under, really, to make sure that I am present to participate in a couple months in the future. And I think, really, for my mental wellness, I have to do that ask of myself. Like, what can I do today to contribute to the collective good? And those two easy things I can do. I did, you know. And I really like, I don't know who that person is that tied that bag on my the fence, but you guys did hear my dogs. So they don't have to come and try to knock on my door. Sometimes the way people come to my house is they drive up and they honk the horn. It's not rude, it just what is, you know, because also during this time, we are having to approach people differently. And I was reminded of how I already had that teaching. I already had that teaching, if you want to say physical distance, or to announce your presence so that it's okay, you are preparing to safely go forward. And we're doing that on a daily basis now. But there is a teaching where the way when, as part of the transition back into camps, like when people would go out on a get it party, I am not using the W word, but in the past, when they would come home, one of the things they did is far off, they started singing. Far off, they made their voice heard so that they could prepare the people for their transition back into our way of life, to our camp. And I think about that a lot, that I'm not saying, go when you cast your vote or you fill out but I do think it would be really good, like if you made up your own census song as you're finishing it. But really, that was our people's tradition, was to come and give a song that the people would hear before they could see them. And really, that's what I think about. I think about all those little babies I see on my newsfeed. But I also think about the living generation, that all of you out there in virtual land, um, I really, in my prayers, I pray for people everywhere. Like, I don't edit, I don't edit you out, or I don't forget that you don't exist. Like, I put that out there because that's what I want. If my mental wellness includes that wish that we all are together again. And it would be really cool if everybody made up a song and they started singing it, that'd be all right with me. But that is a story I heard about how warriors came back into the camp. And in many of our gatherings, the voice is the thing that carries the people through an experience. And so I've seen some stuff saying, make your voice heard and stuff like that. And I don't know if you go hollering into the voting booth if they're going to let you in there, but maybe before, right before you get in the door. Um, but I would say that on a daily basis, I think of how can I make my mental wellness, my internal journey that's connected with the outer world. How can I express that? And so today I was thinking about a project that how I want to connect with other people that I don't know the end of it, but I was creating how I want to give voice to this time that I see. And um, I've done that with the Good Air Mask, and I've also done that with other things that I participated in during this time. And the things that I had before that helped my mental wellness, I use them now. I use them during this time. And sometimes I have to make a list. Sometimes not always a mental, because at the end of the day, when I take my mental wellness list, and maybe there's one or two or 20 or 30 things I didn't get to, if I take that daily list and I join each end together, it's that circle of completing the day. And for my mental wellness, that's what I tell myself. And my mom has a saying too: you did enough for today, and now it's time to sleep. So I really appreciate this hour that I've been able to spend with you. And I want you all to know that my wellness wish, my mental wellness wish, my interior dialogue is that we all go forward in a good way. So thank you for joining. See you next time. I'm going to wave, thumbs up. Bye bye. Have a good day.